your drag is trash.
Hello and welcome to Is It Drama, a drag podcast hosted by Misery May. Misery loves company, so thank you so much for joining me today. It is now the end of October. Tomorrow is Halloween, and I am very sad because honestly, this is my favorite month of the year. I love watching people showcase their creativity when it comes to creating costumes. So I'm obsessed with all the photos I'm seeing on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. But with that being said, Halloween is supposed to be a scary holiday, right? Like, that's the point. I thought for that reason, sharing some horror stories would be a fun way to tie the last episode of the month into the holiday. Now, I personally subscribe to a lot of YouTubers who cover multi-level marketing companies to discuss how those companies are scams that are gonna take a lot of money from you and not give you anything in return. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go down the rabbit hole and learn about MLMs, because hopefully that's not like a super hot take with my listeners. But anyway, a lot of the anti-MLM creators that I subscribe to on YouTube, they do something called MLM horror stories. And I'm sure this is something that is common in other areas of the internet. I just happened to have found it most often in my anti-MLM realm of YouTube. But I thought, wow, that could totally apply to a drag podcast like Is It Drama? So today I decided to share some of my personal drag horror stories. Now, these are things that either happened to me while I was in drag or because of drag. So they're all related to drag somehow. And while these are just my personal horror stories, I do want to use this podcast as a platform for other people to discuss things. So I'm looking to bring on other people to have conversations with me about things they find important, but also I want to be able to share other people's horror stories. If that is something that you would like to do, if you are a drag performer, or maybe something happened to you while you were in the audience at a drag show, I have created an email address specifically for those stories. So feel free to type out your story. Make sure you change names. If you feel that is necessary, let me know if you want to be anonymous, and send off your stories to draghorrorstories@gmail.com. And I would absolutely love to share your story on an upcoming episode. So these are some of my horror stories. In case you're new to the podcast, I currently am doing drag as a drag queen. But in 2012, I started off my drag career as a drag king. So all of these stories are from the time when I was a drag king. Story number 1. In 2012, to become a drag king at my local bar, there was a drag king troupe, and I had to audition in order to become a member. This was like a week after I had seen my very first drag show. I barely knew anything about the art form. I picked a song, learned the lyrics, tried to slap together some choreography, showed up at the bar on a Sunday and performed this audition number to Justin Timberlake's Summer Love. And long story long, I was accepted into the group. But then everyone in the group kind of starts snickering. Essentially what happened was one of the dolls, which was the name we gave to women who were part of the group who were not drag performers, she gave me a lap dance. I didn't know that this was coming, and at the time, I was in a relationship, so I essentially just closed my eyes and sat on my hands while this woman was giving me a lap dance. It was the very first lap dance I ever got. Actually, it might be the only lap dance I've ever gotten, which is a whole nother story because I'm asexual, and it was just the most uncomfortable and kind of embarrassing thing I've ever experienced. My second story, I want to say it was either late 2013 or really early 2014. Myself and 2 other kings from my city were invited to participate in this college's big drag show. It was a very largely attended show. And the dressing spaces for all of the drag performers were behind the stage. And they had like little tables set up with mirrors and lights. And then when myself and the other 2 drag kings show up, we're shown a space for us to get ready. And it's in this dark corner. There's tables for us, but like there's no lighting. So we cannot see what we're doing. And we're looking at all the queens who are getting ready. They're well lit and everything. It's just a very stark difference between what the queens were given as their space to get ready and what the 3 kings were given. Because we were the only kings in the show. Everyone else was a drag queen. I'm not naming this college because I have no reason to believe that like the students who were running this show, I don't think it was like any malicious intent. But regardless, my friends and I ended up needing to search for a different location to get ready so that we could actually see our faces. We ended up in a family bathroom, or a like wheelchair accessible bathroom. I'm not proud of that because you should never be using accessible bathrooms if you don't need them. But at this time, we were like, we need to be ready to go. So we had to throw our faces on somewhere and we needed light. So the 3 of us crammed into this bathroom. It was really, really awkward. We at the time would take our own hair clippings and we would glue them to our face to create our facial hair. And one of my friends did not do the facial hair cutting ahead of time. And she was sitting in the bathroom with me, just cutting up her hair right before the show started. And oh man, it was just really awkward. And it felt like we were a burden. That's personally how I felt. I can't speak for anyone else, but it felt like, oh my gosh, maybe they think that our drag is bad, so they don't need to provide us lighting. Maybe they threw us a table together at the last minute because they forgot about us. It was just a lot of like negative thoughts going through my brain. And while I have no reason to believe that the students who did the setup for the show did this on purpose, it is just very fitting when you consider how often drag kings or other AFAB drag performers are treated as less than. So it definitely did feel like, okay, I'm being treated different because my drag is different. And that was something that has stuck with me for a long time because it seemed like it was just a little glimpse of how that wider problem affects AFAB drag performers. Like, it honestly gave token vibes, like, oh, here are the drag kings, so you can't say we didn't bring in kings. Unfortunately, that is something that happens regularly. So I'm going in chronological order for my stories. And story number 3 is one that I am extremely anxious about. I am going to talk about 2 local drag queens who still perform and book shows in my city. I will not be using their names. My city has a very small drag scene. So before I stopped doing live drag performances in 2020 because of the pandemic, I had gotten to know and perform with most of my city's drag queens. I also was Facebook friends with them because of networking. The 2 drag queens I'll be discussing today are Ashley and Jessica. Ashley and I had performed together one time at Jessica's benefit show for a pageant she was running in. And, we're backstage getting ready together. And Ashley looks down at some boots that I'm wearing that are covered in rhinestones, and she compliments them. She says she loves them, and she asks me if I did the rhinestoning myself. And I say, yes, I did. And we performed our numbers, tried to raise some money for Jessica. And then we go about our separate ways, but we were Facebook friends. And one day I see Ashley posting a Facebook status that says, and I'm paraphrasing, "It's unacceptable for drag queens to wear tights that don't match the rest of their skin color." And myself and another person commented on there to say, hey, you know, maybe you're not considering the fact that people of color might have a really hard time finding tights that match their skin, because that's a thing. And she posted statuses afterwards talking about how it was just a fucking joke and you're watching her turn into a monster. And I was just like, okay, unfriended. Later, Jessica posted a status, something along the lines of, you know, at the end of the day, don't take drag too seriously because we are just men in dresses. So, of course, my non-binary ass went into the comment sections to remind Jessica that not all drag performers are men. There are non-binary people. There are women who do drag. But it got really nasty after that. Jessica really lost it at the thought of non-binary people existing. And like I've mentioned previously, I myself am non-binary. And there were several other non-binary drag kings who were in the comments just being like, yeah, hey, we exist. And Jessica told us that she was in the medical field. She knew what she was talking about, that there were only men and women. Non-binary was a made-up concept. And it escalated to the point of Jessica telling a non-binary person to walk into traffic. It was really disturbing, to be honest. It essentially got to the point where like the comments on the status were just so out of control. There were additional statuses made. There were attempts to have private conversations with Jessica, but it ended very poorly. And at the end of the day, I think some people might have reached out to the bar that Jessica works at and does drag at, and they might have said something to the bar, because Jessica did post a very like copy paste looking apology saying that she had educated herself and she knows better now. It was not an apology that I personally accepted as a non-binary person, because there's no way that you can go from saying non-binary identities are made up to I've learned, I've educated myself, I'm better now, I know better, within like a matter of days. It was less than a week. So I did not accept the apology. It definitely came across as my employers at the bar told me I had to post something, but that is just my personal opinion on the apology. I was not the only non-binary person involved in that situation, so other people might feel differently. But essentially, because there was no real consequences for that, it felt like, okay, I'm going to unfriend Jessica and I'm going to be kind of upset at the bar. There was a documented issue happening with one of their show directors and drag queens, and there were no consequences. To this day, Jessica still books shows at this bar. But yeah, that was the end of those two situations. But unfortunately, more stuff comes about. I had not been Facebook friends with either Ashley or Jessica for a good long time at this point, and I had stopped performing drag during the pandemic because I didn't want to get sick. So when I saw that the only gay bar in my city was back to doing drag shows, I posted a status to my private Facebook account that was friends only, and it said something along the lines of, people being asked to wear a mask at a Walmart are beating up employees who say those things to them, but the gay bar in my city is having drag shows, and you know how drunk people get, so why is this happening? And in the comments, I said, F you to the gay bar. Now, was that the most tasteful thing I've ever posted on the internet? No. Was it posted to my private Facebook page and not intended to cause a ruckus? Yes, because that was my honest opinion at the time. And someone on my Facebook page took a screenshot of that status and sent it to Ashley and Jessica. I immediately went through my friend list, and anyone who was even vaguely associated with working at this gay bar was unfriended because I didn't know who did it. The problem is that Ashley and Jessica were big mad when they saw my status that did not talk about them. I became aware of the fact that Ashley had seen my status because she posted the screenshot as a Facebook status and tagged me. And then she proceeded to go on Facebook Live and say horrible things about me. If you have ever listened to this podcast, then you have heard Ashley's voice at the beginning of every podcast. She is the one who was on Facebook Live when she told me that my drag is trash. She insulted my looks. She insulted my mental health. She said that I had no friends. She said that she made, and it was, insults. Okay, whatever. But she was insulting me, saying things like, oh, your drag always has food stains on it. And I was like, when? She also accused me of performing country music, which was personally insulting to me because I'm not a fan of country music. So I sure as heck have never performed country music. But this went on for quite a while on her Facebook Live. And she had said my name, my first and last name. So everyone who was watching her knew exactly who she was talking about. She didn't give me a fake name like I did here. She gave my first and last name and started saying all of these terrible things about me. And that would have been funny because, you're just lying about me. Anyone who knows me knows that those are lies. But at the same time, one of her viewers asked, where does this person live? And she told them an approximate area where she thought I lived. She didn't have my address or anything, but she's like, oh, they live here. What? What was the purpose of that? You're mad at me because I said bars shouldn't have drag shows during a pandemic and you're telling someone where you think I live? She was wrong, but why are you putting that information out there? That's not acceptable. And then comes Jessica. Ashley essentially called Jessica into the conversation. And Jessica ended up going live, pulling the same kind of shit, insulting my drag, saying that all I wore was dingy t-shirts and jeans. This happened years ago at this point, and there have never been consequences for this behavior. And that bothers me. It doesn't bother me that these people were lying about me because I know who I am as a person. So your lies don't matter. But my opinion was meant to stay between myself and my Facebook friends. And someone violated that boundary. It sent this to these performers who then decided to make it a huge issue. And what if someone else was at the receiving end of all of this? I am able to tolerate lies being said about me. Does it still bother me? Sure. But it doesn't impact my life on a daily basis. What if they were doing this exact same thing to someone who they clearly didn't know and it ended up in the worst possible consequences? Online bullying can have devastating consequences. And so the fact that Ashley and Jessica were never held accountable for this is gross. And it's extra gross when you consider that what I perceive to be their hatred of me is based on the fact that I am AFAB, my drag doesn't look the same as theirs, and so they felt that they could just insult me for it. The bottom line comes to AFAB people just getting treated a lot worse than AMAB people in the drag scene. And to this day, I do have an issue with these two performers still being able to book shows at the gay bar here because there's only one gay bar and it is being populated by queens who have done such horrible things in public where anyone could see it and where it has been recorded. And the bar has decided to not have any conversations about this. My drag father, Travis Hard, tried to book a meeting to talk about this and how this was a problem that needed to be addressed and was ghosted. Editing Misery here. I just wanted to let you know that I am about to insert some clips from the Facebook Lives that I have been discussing. So these will be from Ashley and Jessica. These were recorded in August of 2020, And I just wanted to share them to kind of back up what I had been talking about.
Nobody wants to sit there and watch lazy ass fucking drag kings put on a baggy t-shirt and do a fucking country number in a lawn chair. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. It's garbage. Your drag is trash. That's why you're not getting shows. That's why nobody wants to be friends with you. And that's why you're irrelevant. Stop being trash. I'm getting home. I want to eat my Taco Bell and I want to have a nice day. So calling you out by name again, and I've done this before. Step in my inbox if you want to fucking.
And I don't know why the little bitch keep fucking with us. But she need to go, Lord, correct my mouth, because bitch, I was going to tell her what she needed to do, and then it was going to be a whole nother issue. Now, mind you, you're doing shows with queens who are wearing these elaborate costumes, these rhinestones, feathers, sickening wigs, and you show up in a t-shirt, some jeans, and you draw a mustache on, put on this dingy-ass t-shirt and these old-ass thrift store jeans, and get on stage and parade up and down the street. Whether you're a drag queen or drag king or a non-binary performer or whatever type of performer you are, you have to look stage ready. Don't nobody want to pay money to come to this bar to see some shit they can see on a regular basis. I want to be wowed when I come to a show. And you parading up and down the stage in a t-shirt and some pants is not wowing the crowd. You need to pick a struggle, goddammit. Either you want to perform here or you don't feel safe here. Either you support us or you don't. Listen here, I want you to take your opinion about whatever it is that you got going on and you shove that clean up your ass. But you were so wrapped in your own mental issues and you couldn't understand what the hell I was telling you, and you said that I was attacking you.
It's trash. Will forever be trash. There's never drama. Never. Until opens his mouth. It's just unfortunate because clearly this person is not loved. This person probably doesn't have a lot of friends. This person has also stated that she did not feel safe in our establishment, okay? She didn't feel safe at a gay bar. No, sweetie, you didn't feel safe is not the correct terminology. You felt jealous and overshadowed and invisible. Because that's what you are. You're invisible. You're irrelevant. This person, doesn't understand what love is and doesn't have human capacity to understand emotion. You know, people feel that they're entitled to certain things just because of, their status or their sexual identity or their gender identity. Or the shit that gagged me was having stains, like food stains, on your drag. You should not be having stains on your drag and then expected to be viewed as professional. I highly doubt somebody like you who has 4 people, interacting with their posts and maybe one person commenting, you're not going to change the world, okay? Just keep your fucking mouth shut. Because I'm sick and tired of hearing your fucking name, sick and tired of seeing it, sick and tired of hearing about it. Now that I've gone on a fucking rant about a fucking drag king that can't keep their fucking mouth shut, I would just love for to pop on here and say something, because it's, normally I'm not one to drag someone, or I'm not about cancel culture, but you're canceled. The performer's name is they are a drag king, and I believe they live in...
Yeah, that is that, but it's not my last horror story. I also want to talk about story number 4, how the only gay bar in my city invited the cops to recruit people during their Pride event. This happened in June of 2023. I was not at this event because of the previous incidents. I did not feel comfortable being around Ashley or Jessica, and they were both scheduled to be at this event. So it was a big surprise to me when I saw a local organization that focuses on helping trans and queer people. They started posting pictures of a protest that they did at this Pride event. Originally, this organization had a booth set up at the event so that they could spread the word about what their organization did, what resources they offered. But when they saw the police had a booth at the same event, they decided to remove their booth and protest the event. There was a really mixed reaction to this in the news coverage. First of all, the local paper had the article about this protest behind a paywall. So I had to pay like $4.33 just to read the article, which is ridiculous. And it also just seemed very much that like the reporter did not try very hard to figure out why this organization was protesting the cops. Now, if you're unfamiliar with why I find this to be a horror story, it's important to understand that the birth of the modern gay rights movement in the United States happened at the Stonewall Inn in 1969. The Stonewall Inn was a place of gathering for queer people, and it was very often raided by the police, whose job required them to enforce like anti-LGBTQ laws. This included making sure that everyone in the bar had at least 3 items of clothing that matched their assigned gender at birth, and things like that. And a lot of people would get arrested regularly for cross-dressing or just being gay in public. So the police have a very long-standing history in the United States of being anti-queer. And so when you are the only gay bar in the city and you invite the police into an event that is supposed to celebrate queer pride, do you not understand the history of the gay pride movement? Does that not ring a bell to you? Police brutality and gay rights go hand in hand, because without the police brutality, gay rights movements would not have picked up the way they did. It just seems so ignorant to the history of gay rights in this country to have the police there and have them recruiting people to become police officers. Like, that is not the ally flag that the owners of this gay bar probably think it is. That is not a good look. And it, rightfully so, made certain people uncomfortable. The organization that protested, I support them fully. I think that if you're going to do work to support the queer community, it is 100% necessary for you to understand that there are members of this community who, either because of their gender presentation, their gender identity, and or their skin color, they are going to feel unsafe around the cops. And that is a very natural reaction for them to have based on the history of police brutality in the United States. So this was just a nightmare. I was so disappointed and so upset when I saw that that had happened. And the fact that a lot of people were acting as if these protesters had somehow ruined Pride. I'm like, really? The cops were not there to work security. They weren't there to just make sure everyone has a nice, safe time, which is usually the excuse that people use when they invite the police to their Pride events. That wasn't even happening. They literally had a booth and were trying to recruit people to become cops. Like, there was no reason for them to be there. And for this bar to not understand how that might trigger people into feeling unsafe, that is just mind-blowing to me. And it was so upsetting. And I feel like a lot of people just wrote it off as, oh, this rogue group of protesters. No, those protesters have the safety of their community in mind, and I respect the hell out of that. A police presence could put certain members of the queer community at risk, and they were not going to stand idly by and let that happen. I am so proud of these protesters. I'm so proud that they made an unpopular choice and they stood by that choice. I'm so proud of them. The reason I'm not naming them is just because I didn't ask ahead of time if that was something they were comfortable with, but I support them But yeah, that was the other big horror story of mine. It wasn't necessarily a drag story, but it was involving the only gay bar here, which is the only place where drag happens. And because I have been talking for a really long time and I've gone over some things that were really unpleasant, I want to end with my 5th drag horror story, which is simply that I have shag carpet in my art room. And a couple months back, I spilled a metric fuck ton of rhinestones. To this day, after vacuuming, picking up individual rhinestones, I'll walk barefoot in this room for 1 second and I'll walk out into the kitchen and there will just be rhinestones trailing behind me. Like, where are they coming from? They've just disappeared into the void of the shag carpet and I will likely never see them again until they get stuck to my foot and all of a sudden my bathtub is just covered in rhinestones. Friends, if you're listening to me and you are a drag performer who stones their own outfits, please don't do it in any space that has shag carpeting. Though the shag carpet just eats them up. God. Anyway, that is still a horror story that is ongoing in my house. If you have any suggestions for how to get rid of rhinestones in your carpet, let me know, because vacuuming didn't work. I wanted to end on a note that wasn't so heavy. So there's that. Those are my drag horror stories. I hope they were enlightening. I hope that if you have your own horror stories, you know that you are not alone. The drag world is full of all sorts of people, and oftentimes they can do things that aren't nice. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you are interested in having me read out your own drag horror story, feel free to email me at draghorrorstories@gmail.com and I will include them in an upcoming episode. I just think this is important because I feel like if we start compiling horror stories, we'll be better able to just showcase how big of an issue some things are in the drag community. Right now, this podcast is only my voice, but if it gets to a point where I can share other voices here, it'll make it a lot more clear just how prevalent certain issues are. And that is something I really want to bring light to so that as a community of drag performers, we can do better. Anyway, that being said, I will let you all go for the day. Thank you so much for listening. If you celebrate Halloween tomorrow, I hope you have a lovely day. I hope you only get your favorite candies and get to do something fun. Be safe, be smart, and thank you so much for listening. Bye. Oh my goodness. My cat is meowing because he's mad that I'm not playing fetch with him.